G'day, g'day, g'day. It's Mathematical KM here. A week off last week and interesting game this week. Playing Marcel at my local chess club. Round 4 of the Hetherington Memorial. He's 15.25 compared to my 14.50. So it's at 75 odd points. On the other hand, we've met once before. In a rated game, I had the black pieces and I had the win. On the other hand, I think he's watched some of my videos, and I think that's very apparent when we watch the game. So let's have a look. I've got the white pieces, and I see he's not that keen, not very keen to face a water horse, doesn't want to face a hippopotamus. And there we have it. A hippo cannot play a hippo. Very interesting. Already thinking, and now we've gone off. I had been thinking, should I play a pawn 2 squares forward, as he's just done. Because if it's not going to be a hippo, maybe I should be claiming the centre. But, and you can see that was okay, but it liked the e-pawn forward. And forget black for a moment, if the e-pawn is 2 forward, the knight comes across and the pawns and the fianchetto bishop, castle, we're into the Iron English. Simon Williams course. That's what I used to play before I put a year into the hippo, and I'm already thinking, am I playing a hippo or am I trying to transpose into the Iron English and try and remember all the lines of the Iron English? So just mentally, I've already been knocked around a little bit here by Marcel, so that's well done. Brings his knight out. Now, instead of going direct to the Iron English style of a move with that pawn all the way forward, didn't want to let that be an outpost for his knight. So I could have done something to remove it later, but I've just gone the 1 square forward, blocking out a lot of the squares. He's come across, and you know, I was thinking incorrectly about not blocking with the bishop, because let's get this to go back to the other review. There we go. Bishop d2 was actually best, because obviously he can't come in and grab my rook if my bishop's here, because if he does grab my rook, I'll grab his queen. So blocking with the bishop was fine. But, well, there we go. Blocked with the queen, and okay, we are in a technical endgame from move 7. So, very interesting stuff. And what I do find interesting is the computer's telling us that taking with the king is best. Interesting. Now, I knew not to take with the bishop because I would lose the rook. As you can see, bishop takes is bad. So I've developed the knight, and that's how I've taken. He's brought his knight in. So I've gotten rid of the queen, now I've got to get rid of the knight that's annoying me here. Now, I think we can, there's almost the traditional fork for a knight. Sort of winning a rook, or at least going up the exchange on a rook. But also the d-pawn. The d-pawn's no good. So, the thinking here is if I move the king here, it directly protects the d pawn, and if the knight comes in, it's no longer a fork, and the rook will be able to slide across, and I'll then be able to do something about it. And king e2, best move. Still that slight edge to black with that thing there. Okay, now the best move for him is d6, which he has played. Starting to look like maybe a Botvinnik grip for black might be going to be happening. Now the suggested move for me is a3 at this point. I can see that now, but as it is, his knight could have come in, but I could have potentially have trapped it. Yeah, it would have been a nice idea to let him try and come flying in. But instead of that, I've planned on covering that square and a bit of more protection of the pawns. So I've gone there. He's now got bishop and knight on that pawn, which is currently only protected by the king. He's got 2 pieces. I need 2 pieces. That works with the plan that the knight travels. And so for now, he hasn't got enough. He protects the pawn, which was on pre. I invite the knight to leave. And the knight's left, the queens have gone, and I've got it back to level pegging. So in a way, that was kind of... He came in a little bit hard. He's been repulsed. Now h3 is good because we don't want that check. We don't want tactics and tricks with that. h3 wasn't played immediately. I backed my rook off of that diagonal. Still got a slight edge to white at this point. He's brought a knight, developed his other knight, completing his development. Oh, let's have a look. Did it like h3? For the same reasons as before, it's second best at the moment, third best. And you can see b4 attacking the pawn chain, plus 0.5, far and away the best move. And if I'm to pick up one major lesson from this game, that'll be it. Because we'll see just how damaging those pawns can end up being. And I should be attacking that pawn chain. I've got the rook, another pawn, 2 pieces to his 2 pieces. It makes perfect sense. I can see b4 was the move to play. That's perhaps, I know it's move 13. Oh, we haven't got the graph there, but almost in a way the turning point. Very subtle. Instead, now it's just that smidgen to white. And now the pawns are coming at each other there. I imagine he's played h5 to stop g4. And again, it's plus half a point to white. If only I would attack that pawn chain. This is the lesson. Attack the pawn chain. What did I do? Tried to defend against it without actually attacking it. So that's where it was a bit too meek. Should have been more attacking. He's castled. Let's have a look at this. There's one choice for plus 0.2. and then negative. And B4, attack the pawn chain. God, that's got to be the title for this one. Attack the pawn chain. What else was the computer suggesting? Knight to C2, which would be another piece attacking the pawn chain. Or bishop B2, which is the third best choice for a dead even game. And that's what I've played. Bit too meek, not attacking enough. And now black can actually gain the edge with the right move. Knight F to C8. So rook F to C8. And he's played it to D8. Not that different a choice. And again, how many moves in a row? Attack that pawn chain, plus a half to white. Computer, you have to keep telling me and telling me. It's the lesson. From evaluating, it's a slightly unfamiliar situation, but having said that, I've got no excuses. Those 7 of the 8 pawns are in, even though we didn't start with a hippo, they're in the hippo posies right now. And in fact, that's one of the pawn breaks. You could say 8 out of 8. No excuses. That was the move to play. And instead, I've gone for a 5-pawn centre. Kind of interesting. But also not such an interesting evaluation of the game from my point of view. He's moved his bishop back. I was hoping to semi-pawn fork. He'd have to move his bishop back, and then I would take this one and open some lines towards his king. But by moving the bishop before I played G4, he's avoided that little mini plan that I had. So I'm thinking about trying to smash through with my pawns on the king side. But he's playing with his pawns in the middle where my king is. And bishop h3 to... He's got the bishop and the rook supporting that one at the moment, trying to get through. So I played the best move there, but we're still half a point down. To black, black's best move is to swap the bishops off. That's played. And ouch. Now it's quite interesting here that C times D5 is the way to go. Which makes a degree of sense. If he takes with the rook, he'll have one piece on that pawn. I've got the king, I've got 2 pieces protecting. That makes a degree of sense. It's not as much protection over here on that B pawn. In fact, the B pawn is currently protected by exactly 0 pieces. D pawn is protected by 2 pieces. Where's the breakthrough going to happen? Much better for me if it's on the D. So C times D is the way to go. I've instead gone across. It does, and I was realising at the time, it gives me 1 piece protecting the B pawn. There we go. Now still C times D is best, because I've got 2 pieces protecting that one. But I have played over on the king side. And this has allowed and to open it up. Open that line. And I would still be better with the D pawn taking 0.7, and B pawn taking is like more than a point of evaluation worse. And it's largely for those reasons. If the D pawn were to take, the B pawn's protected by 2 pieces. And if he were to take, and I were to take, the rook is protected by the knight. Whereas if I go about it, and I said before, not attacking the pawn chain, you could call that where strategically that's where it's gone wrong. But if you're looking for the doubling down on trying to get an attack on the king side and comparing the attack that I've got with the attack that black's about to have, instead of defending as best as possible here to try and attack on this side, this is the big mistake. This is where we go to -4. We play some good moves from here, but therein was the fall off the cliff right there. Okay, beautiful move. Let's come back and see if the computer likes it. Yep, C3 is the top move. Much better than taking either of the pawns, because that pawn becomes a thorn in my side. I did have a bit of a long think here. I was thinking, what if I take? He takes, all goes forward. I take with check. And then move. Or take it. It felt H times G6 would clear out all the pawns in front of his king, and I'd at least have some sort of a go. And it's funny that it was -4.18, and the safe move, moving the knight to F1, was -3.97, so really not much difference. And given how close they are in the eval, I might have had more luck with perhaps getting a better attack in, with getting rid of those pawns with that H takes G move. So funny, at the time, they were the two moves I was really tossing between. I knew neither of them was brilliant, and again that's showing there. And so I did go with the safer move. And there goes my H pawn and the chance to do that. It does give one open line to his king. Let's see if computer likes this, blocking the path forward of that pawn. Knight to C2 is second best. That is interesting. Rook to H1, trying to get that rook back, perhaps into where it needs to be in terms of defending, but not much in it. So knight C2, kind of pretty good move. He's come forward. Best move for me at this point, F4. Or taking the pawn, E times D4, or rook to C1. That is interesting, because I played, let's try and lock it up. Not as good. He brings his knight around. Pawn is protected by a rook, a knight and a pawn. He takes. Now this was interesting. Rook to g3 check is best, or second best, but they like the pawn taking, which would threaten the knight. I was hoping to get a pair of rooks off, and this is a nice tactic that I've fallen into here. Taking the rook, and can get the rooks off. Rook times b8 is best, but I'm then... If he hadn't moved his knight to where it is, my rook's protected by the pawn. I was hoping for him to have to take me, and my original plan was to have the rook and the knight covering that and to take that pawn. Doesn't quite work. So, check, pawn to come forward. It's all a bit hope. He takes, I have to take. Okay, pawn forward. I can't let another one through. Have to protect the knight. He goes back, king comes back. Doubled his rooks. Okay, got rid of that pawn. Got a passed pawn. A couple of passed pawns, just haven't really got the support around them. Can't protect that knight. Let's go check. He takes. Check. Let's throw the pawn forward. He of course takes. Now that's unlikely. And that's very nice. The blocking the king. Already in the M's. Throw the rook forward. He's gone over to where he didn't really have to. So I've pulled it back from mate ends. Threatening the rook. Check. E6 is best, which protects that pawn. It's played. Bring the rook over. Yeah, I don't like my chances of stopping that pawn. Throw in one more check. And then I've shaken Marcel's hand. So it was quite a good game. Came out of the opening relatively well. Let's get this back. Throw that over there. Come on, let's jump back. For so long, as you can see, it was attack that b4 square. Attack that pawn chain. Attack the pawn chain. Attack the pawn chain. So that's 15 moves in. And I've got a relatively good position, and that's just a fundamental concept. Thrown off the opening I was hoping to play a little, and that was still telling me to attack the pawn chain. And then from here, he's got his pawns motoring, and as far as I can see, the decision to be made is very much, do we want to let that rook be looking here or that rook be looking here? This one's got no protection. This pawn has got 2 pieces protecting. Should have gone that way and not let the 3-on-1 build up, which was pretty clinically done by my opponent. So I will say it was a very enjoyable game, and hard to call it a lesson learned. It's something that I should have known better from that good position and attacking that pawn chain. Just got a little bit thrown off at the start and got to learn to shake that off. Anyway, that was this week's game. So bye from the Mathematical KM. Remember, their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. Bye for now.